All right, so you've sent us quite a stack of articles on, well, it looks like you're doing a deep dive into some of the alternative theories about the JFK assassination.
Yeah.
And we've got a copy here of The Fourth Decade,
Mhm.
a research journal all about that.
You've got a real mix of articles here.
Yeah.
Pershing Gervais, the speed of the limousine, even a missing lamb. We've got a lot to unpack.
There's even one article critiquing Noam Chomsky's views on the assassination.
Oh, wow.
But let's start with the basics.
Okay.
Our mission for this deep dive. To sift through these articles, pull out the most intriguing details, and see if we can maybe connect the dots in a way that gives you a whole new perspective on this event.
All right, sounds good.
Volume 1, Issue 4, May 1994.
Okay.
A treasure trove
Yeah.
of alternative JFK research.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, when you think JFK, you think Texas School Book Depository.
Right.
Right, that's where it all went down.
Yeah.
But one of these articles, 411 Elm Street by William Weston, argues it was more than just Oswald's sniper's nest.
Yeah.
He says they meticulously chose and prepped this building for the assassination.
Interesting.
And for the lone gunman narrative that followed. That's interesting.
What's fascinating is that this wasn't some deserted building. You know,
Right.
69 employees were working there that day, going about their business during and after the shooting.
Wow.
Imagine trying to orchestrate a covert operation with that many potential witnesses around.
So if they were trying to be covert, wouldn't moving into a new building attract attention?
Right.
What's the advantage of 411 Elm Street?
Well, that's where the discrepancies start.
Okay.
Some records say the depository moved there in the summer of '63, others much earlier. And this confusion around the timeline is happening right when Oswald's supposedly in New Orleans.
Oh, wow.
Makes you wonder if they were setting him up as the patsy right from the start.
So creating a backstory, so to speak.
Exactly. Creating a backstory, and then there are the renovations.
Oh, right.
Weston details all these expensive renovations, some of which seem completely unnecessary for a book depository.
Like what?
Well, for example, they put in a brand new passenger elevator,
Okay.
but it only went up to the 4th floor.
Really?
Why would a 7-story building have an elevator that didn't service the top 3 floors?
That's so strange.
Yeah.
It almost feels like they were intentionally limiting access to those upper floors.
And you know what? They just happened to close off the northwest stairway for repairs as soon as that elevator was operational.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
Really?
Like they were controlling access maybe to the upper levels where a sniper team could be positioned.
Okay, so they move in under mysterious circumstances.
Yeah.
They're renovating in odd ways.
Right.
But they're also stockpiling thousands of textbooks in the months leading up to the assassination.
Uh-huh.
And this is despite a decline in seasonal demand, as Weston points out.
That's strange.
Yeah, it's like they were trying to create this facade of a bustling, established business.
Right.
But behind the scenes, something else is going on.
Exactly.
So we've got this weird, suspicious activities.
Yeah.
But what about the people working there? Did they say anything about what they saw?
Well, that's where things get really chilling.
Okay.
Weston talks about the eerie silence that fell over the employees of 411 Elm Street after the assassination.
Right.
Most refused to discuss the event, even decades later.
I mean, I guess that's understandable to a degree. It must have been a traumatic experience.
Correct.
But was there something more to their silence?
Well, Weston quotes an unnamed source who claims law enforcement officials explicitly warned employees not to talk about the case, even with family.
What?
Their safety was on the line.
Wow.
Plus, there were increased security measures at the building after the assassination.
Creating this atmosphere of fear and control.
Exactly.
And some employees faced more than just warnings.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Weston details harassment phone threats, cars parked outside homes, objects thrown at houses.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's pretty scary stuff.
That's terrifying. Were there any specific examples?
Jack Kaysen, instrumental in securing the depository lease, reportedly had to move due to severe harassment.
Oh, wow.
Imagine the toll on him and his family.
And Weston mentions Roy Truly, the building manager.
Right.
He apparently lived in fear until his death in 1985.
Right.
That's a long time to carry that burden.
Their silence, the fear they lived with it, all suggest a deliberate attempt to control the narrative.
So this Pershing Gervais article you mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
does that tie into this idea of controlling the narrative?
It absolutely does. But before we jump into that,
Okay.
there's another intriguing piece of the puzzle we should discuss. The missing lamb.
A missing lamb. This is getting stranger by the minute.
This is from Peter Whitney's article.
Okay.
And it perfectly demonstrates how easily narratives can be manipulated, even using seemingly insignificant details.
Okay.
Remember Jean Hill, the lady in red, who claimed to have seen a gunman on the grassy knoll?
Yeah, the Warren Commission, the official investigation that concluded Oswald acted alone, dismissed her testimony.
Right.
Right.
Yes. And part of the reason they discredited her was because she mentioned seeing a little white dog near the Kennedys, a detail that didn't seem to be supported by any other evidence. So they used a small detail to cast doubt on her entire testimony.
That seems unfair.
It does. But here's where it gets interesting.
Okay.
Another researcher, Wallace Mellom, discovered footage showing a young girl giving the Kennedys a stuffed white lamb at Love Field right before they got into the motorcade.
Oh, wow.
So there was a white, fluffy object, after all, just not a dog.
Right.
But what does this have to do with the missing lamb?
Right. What does this have to do with the missing lamb?
That lamb completely vanishes after the assassination.
Wait a minute.
There's no mention of it by the Secret Service medical staff or even in David Lifton's meticulously researched book, Best Evidence, which covers the handling of evidence after the assassination.
Are you serious?
It's a mystery.
Wait, are you saying this lamb just disappeared?
It really is a mystery. But think about it. If details as seemingly trivial as a stuffed lamb could be manipulated or erased,
Yeah.
what else might have been altered or hidden to fit a particular narrative?
Makes you question everything.
It does.
Okay, so we might have altered narratives.
Yeah.
But you mentioned this Pershing Gervais article suggesting fabricated evidence.
Right.
This all feels very cloak and dagger.
It does, doesn't it?
Can you elaborate on that?
Pershing Gervais was a key witness for the prosecution in the bribery charges against Jim Garrison.
And just to clarify for our listener, Jim Garrison was the New Orleans district attorney who didn't buy the Warren Commission's findings.
Right.
He was convinced there was more to the story and launched his own investigation.
Exactly. And Gervais was initially presented as someone who was going to help take Garrison down.
Oh, wow.
But in an interview with Rosemary James, a New Orleans reporter, Gervais admitted to being part of a U.S. Justice Department scheme to frame Garrison to discredit his investigation.
A scheme to take down the guy looking into the JFK assassination. Why go to such lengths?
Gervais claimed he was given a fake identity and job in Canada by General Motors, all orchestrated by the Justice Department through a Haven program to protect witnesses.
A Haven program? Sounds more like witness manipulation, if you ask me. Did any of this come to light publicly?
Oh, absolutely. It caused a media frenzy in Canada.
Wow.
The Vancouver Sun ran headlines like, U.S. uses Canada as security haven.
Wow.
Even Prime Minister Trudeau was forced to launch an investigation due to the pressure.
So they involved another country in this scheme to silence Garrison. Were there any doubts about Gervais' story?
Well, Gervais denied having a criminal record, but evidence proved otherwise. It doesn't exactly build trust, right?
No, it doesn't.
This raises serious questions about his credibility and the lengths to which authorities might go to discredit anyone challenging the official narrative.
So what happened after all of this came out? Did Gervais ever change his tune about Garrison?
That's the crazy part. Gervais continued to insist that Garrison was a menace, even after his own credibility was shot. It makes you wonder how much of what we believe is shaped by our own biases, even when faced with evidence to the contrary.
So much for an unbiased witness.
Right.
Expert speaker. There's another intriguing thread here. The story of Maurice Bishop.
Uh-huh.
It seems like disinformation played a big role in shaping the narrative around Oswald.
This comes from Thomas Donahue's article.
Okay.
And it really takes us to the murky world of the CIA. Donahue presents evidence that Maurice Bishop wasn't just some code name, but an actual CIA operative confirmed by multiple sources, including former CIA Director John McCone.
So Maurice Bishop was a real person, a CIA guy. What does this have to do with Oswald?
Donahue, along with researcher Anthony Summers, makes a compelling argument that Maurice Bishop was actually David Atlee Phillips, a high-ranking CIA official.
You're saying this top CIA guy was using an alias. Why? And
Right.
how is he connected to Oswald?
Phillips specialized in covert operations, particularly those aimed at destabilizing communist regimes, including Castro's Cuba. Using an alias, like Maurice Bishop, would have allowed him to operate in the shadows.
Okay, that makes sense. But how do they connect Phillips to Oswald?
Antonio Viciana, a prominent anti-Castro Cuban leader, claimed to have seen Lee Harvey Oswald with Maurice Bishop in Dallas just weeks before the assassination.
Are you serious? They were seen together.
Hmm.
How reliable is Vecchiana? I mean, this is a huge claim.
Researcher Gatton Fonzie interviewed Vecchiana and found him generally credible,
Right.
especially since Vecchiana revealed this information before he knew Fonzie was even interested in the JFK assassination.
Hmm.
So it's not like he was trying to feed Fonzie a conspiracy theory.
You're right.
He just mentioned this meeting casually, which makes it even more intriguing.
Yeah.
And both Phillips and Oswald had the opportunity to be in Dallas at the time of this alleged meeting. Phillips even admitted to visiting relatives near Dallas around then.
Oh, wow. So they're both in the right place at the right time. What does Donahue make of this meeting?
He connects it to the theory that Oswald's fair play for Cuba activities were fabricated to make him look like a pro-Castro communist. Remember, Oswald's public pro-Castro actions in New Orleans only lasted 12 days, almost like a staged event.
A way to create that patsy profile we were talking about earlier.
Right. Donahue also points to a series of disinformation efforts, potentially orchestrated by Phillips, to link Oswald to communist forces after the assassination.
Like what?
Well, one example is the story of Gilberto Alvarado Ugarte, a Nicaraguan intelligence agent, who was one of Phillips' assets.
Okay, so this guy is connected to the CIA. What did he do?
After Oswald was killed, Ugarte went to the American embassy in Mexico City and claimed to have seen Oswald receiving money at the Cuban embassy, even bragging about wanting to kill someone. It was a totally made-up story to paint Oswald as a communist agent.
And how does Phillips fit into this?
He was the chief of Cuban operations in Mexico City, which would have put him in a position to stage Oswald's activities there and then use assets like Ugarte to reinforce the narrative.
So we've got a possible CIA link to Oswald, maybe a fabricated cover story, and then a disinformation campaign to sell that story. It seems like they were trying to control every aspect of the narrative, even if it meant manipulating or fabricating evidence.
It's disturbing, isn't it? When you connect these dots, it challenges us to question not only the official narrative, but also how information can be used to shape our understanding of history.
So we've got potential cover-ups, fabricated evidence, disinformation campaigns. But what about the more technical aspects of the assassination, like the limousine speed?
Chuck Marrier's article on that presents some compelling challenges to the official narrative. He highlights contradictions between the FBI's calculated average speed for the limo and what eyewitnesses said, suggesting the limo slowed down significantly, even possibly stopping before the fatal headshot.
Okay, so the official story and the eyewitness accounts don't line up. Why is that important?
Well, think about it. If the limo was going slower, or even stopped, it would have given a potential assassin a much clearer shot at the president.
That's a chilling thought. How did Marrier come to this conclusion?
He analyzed the Zapruder film frame by frame, using the measured distances between landmarks on Elm Street to figure out the limo's speed at different points. His findings are pretty shocking.
Give us an example. What did he find?
The FBI claimed the limo maintained an average speed of 11.2 miles per hour on Elm Street. But Marrier's calculations, based on the Zapruder film show, it never went faster than 12.4 miles per hour, even after traveling over 230 feet down Elm Street.
That's incredibly slow for a presidential motorcade. Is there any eyewitness testimony to support this?
Several witnesses, including some in the motorcade, said the limo was moving much slower than the FBI claimed. Some even said it came to a complete stop.
Huh. Was there any explanation for this discrepancy?
Secret Service driver William Greer gave inconsistent statements about what he did after the first shots were fired. Did he speed up as you'd expect, or did he turn to look back, potentially slowing down the car? The official record is unclear.
It's hard to believe a trained Secret Service agent wouldn't have gotten out of there as fast as possible after hearing gunshots and seeing the panic in the car.
That's why Marrier believes there should be a deeper investigation, including looking at the Zapruder film for any signs of tampering. He points to the driver's odd behavior, the witness statements about the limo, stopping even a moment where the driver seemingly turns his head 180 degrees in 1/118th of a second.
Wait, that's physically impossible.
Exactly. It raises serious questions about whether the scene was manipulated to make the assassination easier and to make investigating it afterwards more difficult.
Wow. So even something as straightforward as the speed of the limo is riddled with inconsistencies and unanswered questions.
It just goes to show how important it is to question what we think we know and to scrutinize even the smallest details, especially when dealing with an event of this magnitude.
And speaking of questioning what we think we know, Michael Morrissey's article takes aim at Noam Chomsky, who surprisingly dismisses most JFK conspiracy theories. This feels like a deep dive within a deep dive. What's Chomsky's argument, and why does Morrissey challenge it?
Well, Chomsky argues that a huge cover-up involving government officials and the media would be pretty much impossible to pull off, mainly because there wouldn't be a paper trail.
Hmm.
And the scale of the operation would be massive.
So he's saying that if there was a conspiracy, someone would have slipped up and left evidence somewhere.
That's the gist of it.
Okay.
But Morrissey counters by saying that, well, if you're part of a conspiracy, you're not exactly going to leave memos and emails lying around detailing your plot.
Plus, you have to consider the idea of manufacturing consent. You can lead people to believe a certain narrative without them even realizing they're being manipulated.
Exactly. It's a more subtle form of control, one that doesn't need explicit instructions or a smoking gun.
Hmm.
Chomsky also argues that JFK wasn't planning any major policy changes, which, according to him, would mean there's no real motive for a conspiracy.
But wait, didn't Kennedy suggest he was thinking about pulling out of Vietnam?
There is evidence suggesting a potential shift in Vietnam policy right after the assassination, coinciding with some new intelligence assessments.
And those assessments came from the very agencies Chomsky usually trusts.
Right.
It's strange, isn't it?
It is. Morrissey argues that if this policy shift was real, it could have threatened people in power who were benefiting from the war. This could have been their motive for wanting Kennedy gone.
It's mind-blowing to think that even Noam Chomsky, someone who's usually so good at seeing through government deception, might be missing something here. This whole deep dive has been incredible. It feels like we've just scratched the surface.
We've gone from what seems like a simple book depository to what might have been the center of a huge operation, from a missing stuffed lamb to an international witness protection scheme, from CIA disinformation to a critique of Noam Chomsky. It's a lot to take in.
It is. So for you listening, what are the main things to remember as we wrap up this journey through the fourth decade? What should you be thinking about?
First, remember that 411 Elm Street might have been far more than just a sniper's perch. All those unusual things about the building, the renovations, the books, the cash payments, the restricted access to the upper floors, it all points to something more calculated, more sinister going on.
And second, that eerie silence from the people who worked at 411 Elm Street and the harassment they faced suggests people in power were trying to suppress anyone who might question the official narrative.
Absolutely.
And third, remember that even small details like that missing lamb could have been manipulated. And when you add the evidence of fabricated evidence and disinformation, it really makes you wonder if the official story is reliable. It reminds us to be careful about what we accept as truth, especially when it comes to history.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So what does all of this mean for you, the listener? What should you take away from all of this? If any of these alternative theories are true, it changes how we understand history.
Yeah.
And it raises some big questions.
It does.
Like who gets to control the narrative and who benefits from that narrative?
Those are the questions we need to be asking.
We've given you some pieces of the puzzle, some threads to pull on.
Uh-huh.
But it's up to you to keep digging, to research further, and to come to your own conclusions about what happened that day in Dallas.
That's right.
Before we finish, there's one more thing I've been thinking about.
Go on, I'm curious.
We've focused a lot on the building, the people involved, the attempts to control information.
Right.
But there's something else underneath all of that. A sense of fear.
You're right. Fear of speaking out, fear of going against those in power, fear of the unknown. And that fear still surrounds the JFK assassination, even after all these years.
Exactly. And that fear, that unease, might be the most unsettling part of this whole event. It's a reminder that searching for the truth can be dangerous, but it's something we have to do if we want to understand the forces that shape our world.
I completely agree.
It's a reminder that history isn't just facts in a textbook. It's about power and control and the courage it takes to question what we're told.
It's about understanding that the past isn't settled and that there are always new perspectives to uncover, even in events as scrutinized as the JFK assassination. It's about understanding that the past isn't settled and that there are always new perspectives to uncover, even in events as scrutinized as the JFK assassination.
And we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. We've explored alternative theories, questioned the official narrative, and delved into the murky world of disinformation and cover-ups. It's been a real eye-opener, and it's clear that the JFK assassination is far more complex than what we might have learned in school.
Right.
Yeah.
It definitely is.
We started with that image of the Texas School Book Depository, a seemingly ordinary building that has become an icon of this tragic event.
Right.
But as we've seen, there's so much more to that building than its facade suggests.
Oh, absolutely.
The strange renovations, the influx of textbooks, the cash payments to the workers, the limited access to the upper floors.
Yeah.
It all raises questions about the building's true purpose.
Yeah, it suggests that it was more than just a sniper's nest.
And then there's the unsettling silence of the workers themselves. the fear that permeated their lives after the assassination.
Right.
It makes you realize that this wasn't just a crime against a president, it was a crime against those who witnessed it. Those who were silenced, those who lived with the burden of their knowledge.
It really makes you think about the human cost of this event.
Yeah, and we also explored the possibility of fabricated evidence and disinformation campaigns and the lengths to which authorities might have gone to control the narrative. The missing lamb, the Gervais case, the story of Maurice Bishop.
Right.
It all paints a picture of a system that was willing to manipulate and deceive in order to protect its own interests.
And it challenges us to be critical thinkers, to question everything we're told, and seek out multiple perspectives.
We even touched on Noam Chomsky's surprising dismissal of conspiracy theories surrounding the assassination,
Right.
and how even someone as astute as him might be overlooking key pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah, it's a reminder that no one is immune to bias, and that even the most respected voices can be wrong.
This deep dive into the fourth decade has been a journey into the heart of one of history's most enduring mysteries. It's left us with more questions than answers, but that's okay.
Yeah. Sometimes the most valuable thing we can gain from knowledge is not a definitive conclusion, but a sense of wonder, a thirst for further exploration.
It's about keeping that spark of curiosity alive, even when the answers are elusive. So to you, our listener, we encourage you to continue this journey. Delve deeper into the research, explore different perspectives, and come to your own conclusions about what really happened that fateful day in Dallas.
Remember, history is not static. It's a conversation that continues to evolve as we uncover new information and challenge old assumptions.
And never underestimate the power of your own critical thinking. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the JFK assassination. We hope you've enjoyed it as much as we have.
Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep seeking the truth.
And it's a reminder that history isn't just, facts in a textbook.
Right.
It's about power
Yeah.
and control
Yeah.
and the courage it takes to question what we're told.
It's about understanding that the past isn't settled,
Right.
and that there are always new perspectives to uncover, even in events as scrutinized as the JFK assassination.
And we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. We've explored alternative theories, questioned the official narrative, and delved into the murky world of disinformation and cover-ups. It's been a real eye-opener, and it's clear that the JFK assassination is far more complex than what we might have learned in school.
Absolutely.
We started with that image of the Texas School Book Depository,
Right.
a seemingly ordinary building that has become such an icon of this tragic event.
Yeah.
But as we've seen, there's so much more to that building than its facade
Oh,
suggests.
not anymore.
The strange renovations, the influx of textbooks, the cash payments to the workers, the limited access to the upper floors.
Right.
It all raises questions about the building's true purpose.
It suggests that it was more than just a sniper's nest.
And then there's the unsettling silence of the workers themselves, the fear that permeated their lives after the assassination.
Right.
It makes you realize that this wasn't just a crime against a president. It was a crime against those who witnessed it, those who were silenced, those who lived with the burden of their knowledge.
And their families.
Yeah.
Right.
And we also explored the possibility of fabricated evidence and disinformation campaigns and the lengths to which authorities might have gone to control the narrative.
Yeah, it's
The missing lamb, the Gervais case, the story of Maurice Bishop.
right. It all points to a system that was willing to manipulate and deceive in order to protect its own interests.
And it challenges us to be critical thinkers, to question everything we're told, and to seek out multiple perspectives.
Absolutely.
We even touched on Noam Chomsky's surprising dismissal of conspiracy theories surrounding the assassination, and how even someone as astute as him might be overlooking key pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah, it's a reminder that no one is immune to bias, and that even the most respected voices can be wrong.
So this deep dive into the fourth decade has been a journey into the heart of one of history's most enduring mysteries. It's left us with more questions than answers, but that's okay.
Yeah, sometimes the most valuable thing we can gain from knowledge is not a definitive conclusion, but a sense of wonder,
Right.
a thirst for further exploration.
It's about keeping that spark of curiosity alive even when the answers are elusive.
Yeah.
So to you, our listener, we encourage you to continue this journey, delve deeper into the research, explore different perspectives, and come to your own conclusions about what really happened that fateful day in Dallas.
Remember, history is not static. It's a conversation that continues to evolve as we uncover new information and challenge old assumptions.
And never underestimate the power of your own critical thinking. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the JFK assassination. We hope you've enjoyed it as much as we have.
Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep seeking the truth.